Adventure Time is well known by now, in that it has a whole cast of colorful and wacky characters that eventually all get expanded upon to become much more developed and compelling. The Ice King became a tragic figure succumbing to a curse that robbed him of his sanity. Marceline the Vampire Queen became a free-spirited hero hurt by the bond she can no longer have. And Princess Bubblegum became the worst person ever. And even though seemingly minor characters were given randomly huge compelling character arcs and growth. Hell, Tree Trunks of all characters had a somewhat compelling character arc and journey, and eventually got a core role in this series that I covered a few months ago. But ironically, the most colorful character seems to be the biggest exception, and that's Lady Rainicorn. And pretty sure a lot of you all kind of forgot she even is a character. And it's not like she was just some unnoteworthy character, she had a ton of important relations, like being one of Princess Bubblegum's closest companions and effectively the wife of Jake. And she does have some important overarching elements to her, so it makes her irrelevancy in the show all the stranger. Why wasn't she given as much characterization or compelling elements as practically all the other characters? Maybe she does and we all ignore that? I want to find out. So it's time to explore the character Adventure Time seemed to have forgotten, Lady Rainicorn. I wonder what was the thought process behind her creation. I mean, it looks like a corporation decided to make the single most appealing girl character design possible. Maybe that was the idea? Now, for maybe the first time in this Adventure Time analysis series, I'm going to the pilot of all things. Yeah, the Nickelodeon pilot. Now, this is a weird thing to cover. For Adventure Time being such an animated staple, seeing what it looked like before is pretty jarring. And it was on another network. I really wonder what it must have been for kids seeing this on Nick and then a few years later seeing a random short as a full show on another network. But Lady is one of the characters that have a role in it, admittedly with a much goofier design. And while Lady is well known for being Korean in the final show, here we get... Yeah. But despite this, there are some important parts to her that would carry through the full series, like her devotion to Princess Bubblegum, being the one to get Jake to help out, and potentially when Jake and her first started their relationship and share the love of Viola. Man, this animation makes her really seem just like a sock puppet. Actually, I legit wonder if the pilot is semi-canon, since it really seems to be like the first time these characters have met, since the show never actually does show it. Just something to think about. Also, aspects of this became canon in the weirdest ways. But onto the series as a whole. Lady Rainicorn is seen in pretty much every episode and has her in the intro with PB. And even in the first episode, she was one of the first characters we see playing around with Jake, already establishing their romantic relations. But she only gets one real starring episode in season 1, My Two Favorite People. The main story of this episode is that Jake is torn between spending time with Finn or spending time with Lady, since both often get in the way of each other. Though it's our first chance to really get to know Lady. We see the two have a cute little relationship and then messing around with their powers, which we see can change the color of things. Even if it's where that a rainbow unicorn and a dog are dating. And Shelby, a character I constantly forget exists, tells him to solve the issue to get both of them to hang out together so he won't miss out. And he tries, but there's a very big problem. Lady only speaks in Korean, and without subtitles so the audience and Finn have no idea what they're saying. And that's kind of maybe the biggest contributor to the overlying issue with her. If she speaks a language that like 99% of the audience is not going to know, then you can't really have that much character introspection or development. And this is practically for the entire show. And it really hurt Lady Rainicorn overall and is possibly the biggest contributor on why she felt like such a non-character. I really gotta wonder if it was worth it in the end. And yeah, they try to tell jokes, and you know what, I've always wanted to know what she says. Let's check the wiki, which I feel I'm gonna do a lot here, and whoa! Oh man, she's kinda dirty. Now I know why Jake said this.
Well, the joke doesn't translate very well.
But they get the idea to get an old translator, but skirted by some underwater dudes. But Lady actually does show she can get her hands dirty and even handle her own in a fight, which is pretty cool and instantly makes Finn like her a whole lot more. And she gets a translator now with the voice of Pendleton Ward, and the two start to get closer.
Come on, my darling. Wrap your legs around me!
Lady also explains that she can fly by some type of light physics that don't make any sense, but eh. Also, yeah, they start to get close, and Jake spends a lot of time in the episode getting jealous that he's getting ignored by them. And it kind of becomes a generic jealousy episode, which is really weird, since Adventure Time doesn't normally do cliched stories like this. I mean, I can only think of a few other times, like Ricardio, which was a generic MC doesn't trust new characters and think they're bad news. Which, like, I don't think any show has actually pulled off well. It's just kind of a lose-lose scenario where either the MC being a suspicious jerk is proven right, or that they were wrong and they were harassing an innocent and no one learns a thing. Okay, except for Gumball, they made it hilarious.
She told me I had nothing to worry about!
Dude, this is you versus a guy she tells you not to worry about!
I'm not sure you understand how that meme works.
And yeah, Jake tries to get them jealous back and calls Tiffany, a character who also gets way more appearances and development than they probably deserve.
Jake, I love you! I love you!
Shut it, Tiffany!
But Lady tries to calm them down and says they're hanging out together because it's what he wanted them to do. And Jake quickly realizes he's being stupid and apologizes as Finn says,
Let's always be stupid. Forever!
and they always will be, and it ends. So yeah, this was our real introduction to Lady Rainicorn, but it did do another show off her deal in greater detail, her powers, and Lord Giovanna's inability to speak English without a translator, but it also highlights Jake's relationship with her in a rather sweet way, and shows a bit of how they work as a couple, and they truly love each other. She does have some more appearances, and even a speaking role in What Have You Done, but the next important episode is in Season 2, her parents. Even if Lady herself kinda barely appears. Jake gets a message that Lady's parents are going to visit, as Jake's worried as he explained that there used to be horrible wars between dogs and rainicorns for control over the crystal dimension. Which is a whole other can of worms I'll get to later, but wow, what a convenient specific problem for this situation.
I'm the fellow for your daughter. Please forget the wartime slaughter.
So the two decide to dress up Jake as a rainicorn to fool her parents, but even acknowledge the plan really shouldn't work. But luckily it does, as Bob and Ethel, with convenient translators, are none the wiser. You know, I thought this implied some sexual dimorphism with rainicorns, but no, I guess Bob is a super sort. As characters, they're not really too important, just kind of being a generic semi-dorky but nice family. However, the episode does quickly become a character has to be a jerk to their friends to impress new people type story, which is honestly one of the worst tropes in existence. But honestly, this episode does it a lot better since Jake throughout shows genuine remorse for what he does with Finn and is sorry for what he has to do, which is much better than like every other plot where the characters become completely different, insufferable people. But it eventually culminates to Bob and Ethel trying to eat Finn alive. So apparently, Rainicorns have actually hunted down and ate human flesh. Wow. Okay, that kind of changes everything. Like, imagine the thing that came out of a 4-year-old girl's imagination hunting you down and eating you alive. That just feels so wrong. And it's funny how they never forgot that.
It's not just the vampires or the users or them hungry looking rainbows.
So, like, did Lady when she first meet Finn also have the huge urge to eat him? Kind of wondering. But of course, Jacob eventually gives up the facade to stop this whole thing. But luckily it turns out their parents love dogs and the dog actually saved Bob's life during the war. How convenient! Like, really, this is kind of a lot to take in. Bob and Ethel apologize for trying to eat Finn, which again does bring up how okay they are with eating sapient beings. Rainicorns are pretty messed up if you think about it. But instead try soy humans, which apparently taste the exact same. Okay, and it ends weirdly. What the f? Okay, ignore that. As much as I can't. This episode doesn't really give too much characterization of Lady, but it does give us some much needed lore by showing off her parents, is of the Crystal Realm, and some aspects of Rainicorn culture, and that. Why Adventure Time? Why?
Finn, you're delicious.
Lady, though, doesn't get many important episodes for a while. She's one of the characters in the second Zombie Apocalypse episode as one of the few survivors trying to get a cure, but can't help herself when she sees zombified Jake trapped. But at least Finn, with the help of a random rat, managed to make the cure and save everyone, with everyone apologizing for attacking each other. I wonder what she said, and whoa! Okay there, Lady, you're just gonna let that out? Lady has this secret horniness to her that they sneak past the network with a Korean. Okay, and there's another Halloween episode, The Creeps, an episode that legitimately terrified me as a kid until it was then explained in a much later episode where it turned pretty sad. But it's revealed that the ghost was actually just Lady Rainicorn and she just phased people into her body instead of killing them. Which is very questionable in multiple ways, but it's important lore.
Sick! You can phase people into your body?
당연하지. 난 제이크랑 항상 한 몸이 되는데.
What did she say? Oh my god, girl, what the hell? seriously, she's starting to be tree trunks on the horniness level. Actually, it is pretty funny since the girly character design is actually secretly incredibly dirty behind bars. But, okay, it's just making me think of Jake having sex and I really don't want to think of that. Let's move on.
What about tier 15?
Stay away from that. Do not do tier 15.
But then in season 4, we get one of my favorite episodes and honestly maybe one of the best episodes of PB, Lady Impebles. And this episode more than anything else shows the real potential of Lady Rainicorn and even PB. It starts out incredibly differently with harsh winter environments and PB explaining that Finn and Jake have been missing for 3 weeks going after Ice King, so there's already major stakes. We also see Lady Rainicorn is very nervous about Jason's appearance and potentially losing him forever, which is a great contribution to their relationship. It's easy enough to see a relationship when they're all smoothie with each other, but it's another to see just how much they care and are dedicated to each other when they are apart. But it is problematic when you can't really understand what they're saying.
내가 좀 걱정이 심한 편이죠. 전 반사를 이빨들을 금가했어요. 보통 전 그냥 그런 거 꾸미려니 내가 이 가위층에서 우는 소리까지 생생히 들린다니까요.
Yeah, this goes on for like a minute. Don't worry, it's not anything important. Oh, I think it's practically a joke in this case. And yeah, it is a case where I do wish they made her just talk normally so we can have some proper introspection. But yeah, Peebs and Lady are taking the helm in this episode. We also get one of the few showcases of Princess Bubblegum and Lady Rainicorn's relationship and their deep friendship and bond they share. And it's so weird since they're together in every episode in the intro, but we basically never see them with each other. And from what little we see, they seem to have a great relationship. We even see more of their tight bond as they decide to venture to Black Ice Caves, since PB apparently hit a tracker inside of Finn's ear. You know what? I'm not even gonna say anything.
MPB, I spy on everybody. No big D.
But hey, at least this one's kind of understandable. And while I love the atmosphere in the dungeon, the horrific body horror walls, and the foreboding tone, it's just a great and creepy location, especially when it has hostile organs. And yeah, it shows that PB and Lady have an almost Finn and Jake level dynamic, with PB using her advanced techno weaponry to fight foes and Lady using her innate magical abilities to work well in tandem. Again, it's a really great dynamic I wish we got to see more of. But even then, the dungeon's dangers are too much to them as Lady's incapacitated, but PB can't abandon her friend as she carries her to the heart of the mountain, and then finds Ice King without his. And yeah, it turns out Ricardo of all characters is behind this, breaking out of Ice King's body and incapacitating Finn and Jake, and use knowledge to create a new body from Ice King's tissue, and even some has to synthesize the entire dungeon. And yeah, some of Ricardo became even creepier.
Oh my.
Oh, he did the thing! And he shows off his new body by, ugh, that's brutal, and even worse with what's out there. He doesn't just want her heart, he wants
The full package.
But PB challenges him to single combat for it and he accepts. But PB easily saw his weakness that his sinews are too sensitive, as she very easily rips them off and kicks his ass, telling the piss off as he crawls away in the darkness. But wait, Ice King didn't have his heart for like 3 weeks. But in Ricardo, he nearly died after what seems to be one night. How the hell is he alive? Okay, who cares? Anyway, PB also apparently carried all of them out again over the span of days, and man girl, she is dedicated. Okay, I slander PB a lot on this channel, but yeah, this is really one of her best episodes and not her best episode, and truly makes her a strong and likable character. But after reviving Finn and Jake, she was also nice enough to make Ice King a new heart out of his old sinew, toffee, and maracas. Actually, really nice of her. But then I remember next season.
The password.
Ow! My pinky!
Password now!
Ow! Ow!
Actually, I wonder, when he turns back to Simon, does his normal heart get restored or is it still a maraca? But okay, back to Lady, we see the two bond again and PB starved for what she put her through, especially what she found after trying to heal her. And again, they have a really great bond that is non-existent in this show. Come on, Adventure Time, give them more screen time! But she was worried about Jake for one primary reason as he drops,
I am pregnant!
oh my god! Yeah, this is happening. Jake got her pregnant.
Dude, let the horse.
Okay, Adventure Time, again, why are you making me imagine Jake having sex? I don't like to think about it. Actually, is Jake the dog one of the few kids show main characters that have sex during the run of the show? Just think about that. But okay, back to the episode. This is seriously one of the highlights of the show to me, and truly shows off Lady Rainicorn's character potential. We see just how well she and P worked as a team, and their commitment to each other that's really no different from the relation to our main heroes. It's a crime that this is practically the only episode it gets explored in. And it's even worse throughout the show, we never see how PB and Lady actually met. And Adventure Time usually loves this type of character lore stuff, but seems to be the only major dynamic that hasn't been thoroughly explored in the show. It's just so weird how it's given no attention. And yeah, I think Lady and Impebles shows just how much potential there is to be explored. But okay, there is that huge development at the end that she's pregnant with her and Jake's kids, which does pay off in the next episode we'll cover, Jake the Dad. So early in season 5, Lady gives birth to a leader of dog shapeshifter Rainicorn hybrids. Yeah, the genetics are kinda weird there. Now we get 5 pups as they're known. Charlie, TV, Viola, Kim Kil-1, and Jake Jr. Oh jeez, what's wrong with their face? I somehow think this was because of Ricardio. Actually wait, is this foreshadowing to Jake's real father? It can't be. Jake loves his new family so much and it's really heartwarming. But he has new commitments and can't really live his lax life with Finn like he used to, and now has to live with Lady in her farmhouse. And it's actually a kind of interesting character moment when Jake has to mature and break out the status quo, if only for a bit. Jake kind of does a 180 when faced with responsibility, becoming a very overprotective parental figure, neglecting his own sleep and paranoid that his kids will get hurt. It's actually a pretty interesting character turn for Jake, who's without a care in the role for most of the time. Contrasted a lot with Lady in this episode, who's much more lax about parenting and prefers the kids to just be themselves. And accidentally throwing a children's book that's way too dark inspires a bunch of foxes to eat babies.
Just sit there while you eat them.
Whoa, eating babies.
Wow, why haven't we been eating babies this whole time?
Eating babies is not cool!
And yeah, the kids are growing up really fast. Lady, though, yeah, you have to translate it, is worried about Jake being overprotective and makes a big deal out of it until he passes out. And just kinda leaves him. You could have at least carried him inside, just gonna let him pass out in a field all alone? But yeah, hilariously enough, the plot doesn't go the way you think, as the foxes think Jake is a baby and go to eat him.
Fellas, there's never gonna be a perfect baby.
Lady doesn't care much that her practical husband is being kidnapped and just sends her little children out to the carnivores to help them. Okay, maybe the relationship isn't as good as I thought. Jake is too tired to fight back, which is actually a reused concept from a scrapped episode that would kinda get another life later on. But the pup survived with Jake Jr. saying her first words.
Dad, the manual's a bunch of junk!
Wow, she's Mabel. And yeah, Jake realizes his parenting manual isn't all cracked out to be, and even he didn't follow as a kid, and allows them to just be themselves. And now these little infants save their father by becoming a war machine like the abomination against Glob they were meant to be.
Face the rainbow, mother.
And Jake apologizes for his accident and thinks his kids are awesome. And Lady also shows up to congratulate them too. You know, maybe this was all a covert plan to teach her spouse a lesson. But soon after we see that Jake returns to the tree forest, his pups really don't need him. Plus, also Rainicorns apparently age super fast, so they're already older than him technically. And it's pretty much the end of the dad arc. It does seem a little disappointing. I'm sure a lot of people would love to see this slowly advance with more characterization, but this is pretty much all we get. I mean, the pups do all reappear in later episodes in a more important emotional arcs like in Ocarina. We never seen Jake put in a situation like this, and it could have explored a new side that unfortunately had to be pushed aside due to the status quo. But in terms of Lady, it is definitely interesting to see a new side of her as well, now as a mother to multiple kids, and there was a few cases of momming. We see a bit of her free-spiritedness here with a more relaxed approach to raising her kids, but she's not really in the episode too much, which is disappointing because this is yet another prime opportunity to know more about her. Most of her kids also grew up after this, with only TV staying with her for some more episodes. She has another appearance in The Pit. Not that one, stupid fallen out of the brain, where the demon Kiosk kidnapped Jake thinking he's his dad Joshua, and Finn has to go get Lady's help to go through their old tapes to find a way to Kiosk's dimension. And again, why is there so much horny stuff between Jake and Lady? Like every episode now has this stuff. Like this is actually beating tree trunks. Hilariously enough, they use her as a circle when facing Kiosk. Also, I love how when Jake's being viewed by Samantha the warrior woman, she is concerned that she's cheating on them. Which again, despite their free-spirited nature and even the free nature of their relationship, she's still concerned that he shows love to anyone else. Though actually interesting enough, they're confirmed not to be married.
Plus, don't even have any wives.
Wait, what? What about Lady?
Lady's my girlfriend.
Wait, but
Okay, so Jake is a cartoon main character who had unmarital sex during the course of this show. What the hell?
yo guys, I still love Flame Princess.
We know, dude. We know.
Never!
Yeah, it's because you secretly still have feelings for me.
But if you notice, we really hadn't gotten any actual lore on Lady. Well, we'll finally get some in her unfortunate last starring episode, Lady Rainicorn of the Crystal Dimension, in Season 8. So yeah, it took him quite a while. So TV is still living it there, and holy subtitles, it finally happened! The Nanosphere has frozen over, the world has ended for a second time, the horse has spoken! And yeah, since this episode really goes into Lady's lore, we actually need this. But I'm shocked it's taken this long.
Princess Bubblegum? You guys even hang out anymore?
I know, right? Like, the show even addresses the fact that the two barely interact. And Lady's encouraging TV to get money and get a job as TV finds a weird crystal sandwich and eats it and decides to go to the market to sell the box. But Lady comes back, what was the lunch, like 5 minutes? And gets a note by TV that is going to sell the box he found and ate the sandwich, which makes Lady insanely worried. In the market, TV is tracked by a punk Rainicorn in a hoverbike. Hoverbike. Wait, can't you fly? And tracks down the sandwich TV ate, and so he, aka Lee, convinces TV to come with him to find a place to sell it and gives me a crap ton of Stranger Danger vibes. Lady notices him and chases after them before they teleport to the Crystal Dimension. But Lady can, holy sh**, tear through the fabric between dimensions, that's awesome! Seriously, why has she never used that before? And we see, hey wait a minute, is it the same crystal world that Tree Trunks was sent to? Okay, so does this imply that the Crystal Apple gave Tree Trunks godlike power to rule over all the Rainicorns, dogs, and crystal men? Like, this kind of seems like a big lore job, a lot to consider here. And yeah, we get to finally see the actual Crystal Dimension, which does mean that Rainicorns are not near to Uwu at all. They're extra dimensional, which is kinda nuts. Also, I love this joke.
How much did this place cost?
아, 이거 내 거 아니야. 그냥 빈집에 들어와 있는 거야.
And yeah, Lee's planning something sinister with TV, but Lady eventually gets a flashback. It turns out that she and Lee used to date when she was a wild child and him was a troublemaking punk. Kind of interesting for her character, but also proves hilariously enough that Lady isn't any type of royalty, but her parents just literally named her Lady. That's hilarious. I mean, it's not the first time.
I'm not even a real princess. Princess is just a surname.
And Lee is super racist towards dogs. Is that Toronto? What is he doing here? Wait, he's a Shiba? I totally thought it was a squirrel. Okay, like seriously, I can't be the only one. Please tell me you thought so too. And yeah, dogs are also in the Crystal Dimension, really going back to what seemed like a random joke in Season 2, but the show is all about that stuff. But okay, does this mean that mutant sapient dogs from Uwu found their way through the Crystal Dimension and started a territory war? Or that the dogs we see in the show are also extra-dimensional? There are way too many questions here that don't add up. But Lee freaking hates dogs, and there's a whole bunch of pranks that get worse and worse as Lady's hesitant about her boyfriend's actions. That is until she finds out Lee's plan to seal the emergence of destruction, which Lady is worried could start another Rainicorn war.
You mean this stolen map?
Wait, Fred Stroller, is that you? Haven't seen you since the Over the Garden Wall video.
Nice to horse your acquaintance.
Oh, how I love you.
Hey, what's going on? What?
But Lee convinces her to join to get that weird sandwich of unknown power before she double crosses them and takes it, with Lee swearing he'll get it back. Lady has to leave the Crystal Dimension and meet back with her parents, which wow, not to see them again. And her parents care much more that she's dumping her delinquent boyfriend and having to run for her life.
No more nose ring, bozo.
Prayer works.
And then casual portal to ooh, how does that make sense? Is that a Mario reference? Wait, did this bring in the Mario movie somehow? As she finds the barn she will eventually live in and flashbacks over. She goes over to Fred Stroller who's turned new leaves since then and wonder why he speaks English and not Korean. He doesn't even have a translator like Bob Rethel. Maybe Fred just couldn't speak it? And I love the other Rainicorn designs, look at those wiggly worm guys. She finds out where Lee's hiding and wow Lee, despite your racial intolerance for dogs, you still hire them to work with you? Someone clearly doesn't practice what they preach.
You are a bad person.
Actually, it does bring up, are there dog deserters from wartime? Again, a lot of unexplained questions. But Lee goes to get TV to spew the emergence of destruction as Lady arrives and fights off the dogs hilariously with a newspaper. So Lee wants to use the emergence so that Rainicorns can rule the dimension again, I guess. Also, Lee never finds out that his girlfriend practically married a dog that could have been interesting to be addressed. But then Lee licks it like, ugh, don't you know where it's been? Also, wait, why didn't it activate when TV ate it? Doesn't make any sense as he then merges with it. I guess the name was accurate. But then it starts to assimilate Lady and TV, which I guess that's what it does? Was Lee planning to use it to merge all the dogs into it? God, Adventure Time really is the only show where you can see someone commit genocide by a sandwich. But luckily, TV still has the box and manages to seal away the mergers before it kills them, I guess. But TV actually doesn't want to go back home with his mom, wants to instead stay in the Crystal Dimension and learn about his culture. And by that I mean crashing with his grandparents. Well, at least he'll continue his grandparents' legacy in the finale. And yeah, this episode is probably the only episode in this series where we actually get to see any amount of Lady's history. We see more of her established home after like 6 seasons and how she originated, ironically in a darker side to her than you'd think. And yet she rose up to stand for what was right, which eventually caused her to go get the life she is in now, with friends and a new family. And it's nice to again see that brief time where she truly takes charge to get control of her narrative. She took charge to save her dimension and then to save her family. And this is a nice thing to see again, not only for her characterization, but also getting some actual lore for her. Much help with the inclusion of subtitles. But unfortunately, this is the most we really ever get. Now, it's not like Lady Rainicorn doesn't show up in later episodes. She shows up in the Elemental Saga similarly to the fire element of all things as Lady Rainicorn. I wonder how that happened. But even after the Elemental Saga, we've seen an important development where the Elemental Reversion also reverted Jake to his natural shapeshifter form. But Lady Rainicorn doesn't really care what he looks like despite literally everyone in the show freaking out. And even tries to help him feel better by using her powers to turn to his normal yellow, which doesn't work. But still, she loves them all the same and it's super adorable. But that's pretty much it. Again, she shows up but doesn't have that much importance. Even in the finale we see her side with PB, because of course she would, but even in the epilogue, still the two just vibing together. So what are we left with? It's really weird that Lady Rainicorn seems to be the one character of Red Time practically left behind during its run. Unlike roughly every character, she wasn't given that much truly meaningful characterization or lore to develop her character. Only really LSP was left behind in a similar way, but unlike Lady, she had plenty of episodes that didn't grow at all from it. But Lady Rainicorn is not a character without potential. They did give us somewhat of her backstory, and their relationship with Jake was very sweet and heartwarming, and led to them actually starting in an in-depth family the show explored a lot in the series, which is something that very few cartoon shows can boast. And yeah, despite Adventure Time being infamous for bad relationships, this one might actually be the best, because it was actually developed. But even through most of that, Lady kinda got the short stick and was largely focused on the kids, not her. But I think what truly showed the potential she had was her and PB's relationship. Literally everything makes you think they had a huge and dynamic relationship. Even from the start, it seemed like they had a huge bond, but it was never explored in detail in a single episode. And it probably was both their best episode. They could have had their own Finn and Jake dynamic, and it's just how it's just completely ignored, that the show even makes fun that they barely actually see each other on screen. We never even get to see an episode where they first meet, and Vincent loves that lore stuff. It feels like a missing episode that should be there. And not only could it have helped Lady, but also helped PB. I have made my thoughts on PB very clear and how her characters became awful as the seasons went along, but Lady is not like other characters. What it seems, PB holds Lady as a genuine friend that she has immense respect for, even more than Finn and Jake would PB easily take advantage of. Lady could have been someone who could talk to her in equal footing and someone she'd actually listen to and she'd actually respect. But unfortunately that never happened, and PB and Lady didn't get the development they deserve. And I feel the main reason why Lady wasn't given the development she needed was the whole language thing. In the earlier seasons, it was fine as a character quirk, but as the show got more mature and complex, it was hard to work around that. You can't have character introspection and lore if you can't even understand what the characters were saying. So they just didn't bother most of the time, and only at the end did they finally subtitle it because it would be impossible for the plot to work otherwise. If they didn't put that in, maybe she would have gotten more chances to shine, and I kinda feel it wasn't worth adding. And it really sucks to see because I love it when Adventure Time develops its characters in complex ways. I wouldn't say it's as bad as Flame Princess, who did have established interesting character lore and developments the show didn't really care to pay off, but still think they did this Rainicorn dirty. She really had the chance to be a really great character, but unfortunately it never seemed to be. Maybe if even in Cake, but I doubt it. But I did leave this with one major question. Are they ever gonna get married? It's been years. Come on, commit. You have kids out of wedlock.
Space Unicorn.